can't believe she did that right here.
She must be fired immediately.
Look at her, pretending to cry.
She was on her knees, not because she wanted to be, not because she had done anything wrong, but because a room full of people in designer gowns and custom suits had decided that was exactly where she belonged. Down on the marble floor, scrubbing away the evidence of a moment she hadn't even caused. The Crystal Tower, 5 feet tall, tens of thousands of dollars, the centerpiece of a gala that cost more than most people make in a year, had come crashing down, glass and champagne everywhere. And somehow, even though no one had seen exactly what happened, even though the blame hadn't been assigned and the truth hadn't been spoken, the finger landed on her, on Maya, the maid. And in that silence, with dozens of guests watching, someone said the words out loud, "Get on your knees, clean it, now." She looked up. She looked at the man who had said it, a man whose name alone could ruin careers, whose family's portrait hung in museums, whose grandfather had built the hotel they were all standing inside. She looked at him with steady eyes, and she said quietly, "I'll clean it, but I won't kneel." The room went so still, you could hear the chandeliers hum. That was the moment everything changed. That was the moment a secret buried for 20 years started cracking open. Not slowly, not gently, but like a fault line splitting beneath a city that thought it was safe. This is her story. Before we go further, take a moment to subscribe, like this video, and tell me where you're watching from. It truly means a lot to see how far these stories connect with people around the world. Maya Calloway had been working since she was 16 years old. Not the kind of working that builds a resume, internships, college credits, summer programs. The kind of working that keeps the lights on. The kind where you show up before sunrise and leave after the last guest has gone to bed, and you do it again the next day without complaint, because that is simply what surviving looks like. She had grown up in Clarkton, a mid-sized city in the Midwest where the good neighborhoods had gates and the bad ones had bail bondsmen on every corner. Maya had grown up somewhere in the middle, not poor enough to be invisible, not comfortable enough to feel safe. Her foster mother, a woman named Diane, had taken her in as an infant and raised her with a kind of exhausted practicality that never quite crossed into warmth. Diane wasn't cruel, but she was closed. There were things she didn't talk about, questions she deflected, a history she kept folded up somewhere Maya was never allowed to open. The one thing Maya had, the one object that felt truly hers, was a locket. Silver, small, engraved on the back with a pattern of interlocking vines that Diane had always said came with Maya when she arrived as a baby. She wore it every day. It was the first thing she reached for every morning, and the last thing she touched before she fell asleep. She didn't know it was a key. She didn't know that somewhere in a mansion on the north side of the city, an old woman had been looking for that locket for 20 years. At 26, Maya had spent the last 3 years working for Prestige Event Services, one of the most sought-after staffing agencies in the region. She was reliable, she was professional, she was good at becoming invisible in a room full of people who paid money to feel like royalty. The Whitmore engagement gala was her assignment for the night. The Whitmore family, specifically the Whitmore-Ashford family, was exactly what they sounded like. Old money, new ambitions. A family tree so deeply rooted in American business history that their name appeared in textbooks. The engagement being celebrated was between the eldest grandson, Callum Whitmore Ashford, and a woman named Serena from a Connecticut family with equally ancient accounts. It was the kind of event where a single table arrangement cost more than Maya's monthly rent. She arrived at 6, set up by 7:30, was pouring the first round of sparkling water by 8. She was doing everything right. She was doing everything she was supposed to do. And then the Crystal Tower fell. To this day, Maya is not entirely certain what happened. There was a man, a guest, not staff, who had been leaning against the display table where the tower stood. She had asked him politely to move. He had laughed. And then, seconds later, there was a sound, like a small explosion as the tower tipped, and came down in a waterfall of glass and liquid. The man disappeared into the crowd. The crowd turned toward Maya, and that was how she ended up on her knees, not cleaning, not yet, because she hadn't agreed to that, but being pushed there, physically, by the weight of a room that had already decided who was responsible. "You ruined it," said the man standing over her. His name was Preston Whitmore Ashford, uncle to the groom, patriarch of the eastern branch of the family. His voice was the kind of quiet that was louder than shouting. "This tower cost more than 10 of your lives. Apologize. Get on your knees and clean it." "I'll clean it," Maya said, kneeling to pick up the glass carefully. "But I won't kneel to you." There were gasps. There were whispered comments. Someone laughed and someone else shushed them. Preston's face went rigid. "You're not refusing me. A maid. You do not get to refuse me." "I'm cleaning your floor," Maya said, still not looking up at him. "That's my job. My dignity isn't part of the package." And that was when the old woman pushed through the crowd. She moved with a cane, but she moved fast. 80-something years old, silver hair pinned back, wearing a gown that probably had its own history. Her name, Maya would learn, was Eleanor Whitmore Ashford. She was the family's matriarch, the one whose portrait hung at the top of the grand staircase. She stopped when she reached Maya, and she stared, not at the mess, not at Preston. She stared at Maya's neck, at the locket. "Where did you get that?" The old woman's voice had gone very quiet. Maya looked up for the first time, confused. "I've worn it since I was a child." "That locket," Eleanor said, and her voice was shaking now, "belonged to my granddaughter. I had it made for her. One of a kind. There is no other like it in the world." Preston stepped forward. "Grandmother, sit down, please. I have been looking for that child for 20 years. Eleanor's eyes hadn't left Maya's face. 20 years. I searched. We all searched. We were told she was gone. The room had gone completely silent. Maya rose slowly from the floor. "I don't understand what's happening," she said. But somewhere, deep in the back of her mind, something stirred. Not a memory. A feeling. Like a door she had never thought to look for suddenly appearing in a wall she had lived beside her whole life. They brought her in that night. Brought is perhaps too gentle a word. It was somewhere between an invitation and an escort, the kind of situation where declining wasn't really an option, not with Eleanor Whitmore Ashford insisting, and two family attorneys appearing out of nowhere at midnight like they'd been waiting in the wings. Callum, the groom-to-be, was the one who arranged the room. "You'll stay here until the DNA results come back," he said, standing in the doorway of a guest suite on the 3rd floor. It was perfectly nice. Maya had cleaned rooms nicer. "No one is making accusations either way. We just need to know the truth." "DNA," Maya repeated. "You're doing a DNA test. Swabs went out 20 minutes ago. Results in 48 to 72 hours. And until then? Until then, you're a guest of this house." He paused. "Or something like it." Down the hall she could hear voices. Specifically, she could hear Preston's wife, Claudette, who apparently found the whole situation deeply offensive and wanted everyone within earshot to know. "She was scrubbing floors an hour ago. She is not a guest. She is not family. She is a liability." Maya unpacked the one bag she had with her and sat on the edge of the bed. She reached up and touched the locket. She had never once considered that it might mean something beyond what it was to her. A piece of comfort. A thread connecting her to an origin she didn't know. Now she looked at it differently. If the old woman was right. If it was truly one of a kind. If it had been made for someone. Who was she? The next 3 days inside the Whitmore Ashford estate were unlike anything Maya had experienced. On the surface, it was luxury. High ceilings, chandeliers, a kitchen that ran 20 hours a day. On the surface, it was a world she had always worked inside but never belonged to. Beneath the surface, it was a battlefield. Preston and Claudette were openly hostile. They referred to Maya at the breakfast table in the third person while she was sitting right there. The girl should know how to hold a fork properly if she's going to eat with us. The girl should understand that DNA results aren't a guarantee of anything. The girl should consider that some stories are told by desperate people looking for a shortcut. Callum was quieter, watching. Eleanor, the grandmother, looked at Maya the way someone looks at a painting they're not quite sure they recognize, searching, hopeful, afraid to be wrong. And then there was Daniel. Daniel Whitmore Ashford was Callum's older brother, the one who didn't appear in the family's press materials, who showed up to dinners late and left early, who had a quality of stillness that Maya initially read as indifference and later understood was something else entirely. He pulled her aside on the second day. Hallway, now. Not a request. When they were alone. Who told you to wear that locket to this event? No one told me anything. I wear it every day. I've worn it my whole life. He studied her face. Someone in this city knew exactly what that locket meant. And you showed up at our family's private event wearing it. I showed up at your family's event because an agency assigned me to work here. I've worked this venue 6 times this year. I'm on a list. She held his gaze. Do you really believe every person without money is running a con? Something shifted in his expression. Just slightly. I think scams wear very convincing faces, he said. Good. Look harder at mine. You'll find exhaustion, not a scheme. She walked away first. He watched her go. If you're still here with me, I have to ask, does this remind you of anyone you know? Someone who had everything taken from them and still chose to stand tall? Drop their name in the comments. Let's celebrate them. On the third morning, Maya found a folder. She wasn't snooping. She was lost, genuinely lost in the labyrinthine east wing trying to find the kitchen, when she turned a door handle that she thought led to a hallway and instead found herself in what looked like a private archive room. Shelves of old ledgers, filing cabinets with handwritten labels, and on a reading table left open, a folder with a photograph paper-clipped to the front, a photograph of a baby, in a blanket. The blanket had a pattern Maya recognized. She had a photo of herself as an infant, in an almost identical blanket. She picked up the folder. The first page was a report. Medical, from a hospital. She scanned the header, Riverside Women's Medical Center, Clarkton, closed 18 years ago. Beneath the header, most of the page had been torn out. Not cut. Torn. Roughly, in a hurry, leaving ragged edges and the ghost of typed words she couldn't read. Someone stepped into the room behind her. You shouldn't be reading that. She turned. A man she didn't recognize, older, 60s, in the uniform of the household staff, a senior butler or estate manager. Who tore this page? She asked. Some old stories, he said carefully, are safer when they stay closed. Safer for who? She asked. He didn't answer. He nodded toward the door and waited for her to leave. She left. But she memorized everything she'd seen. The charity gala was 2 days later. Eleanor had specifically requested Maya attend, not as staff, but as a guest. The family, with varying degrees of enthusiasm, had agreed to present a unified front while the DNA results were pending. Maya understood what this really was. A test. Could she move through their world without embarrassing them? Could she hold a champagne glass correctly? Did she know which fork was for the salad? Claudette had apparently decided to help her prepare. The help felt like surgery performed without anesthetic. Sit like this, not like that. That's how service staff sit. A pause, a meaningful look. Old habits. I'm learning, Maya said simply. Your posture says otherwise. Softer, rounder. You hold yourself like you're bracing for a fight. That's because I usually am, Maya said, and smiled pleasantly. For the gala itself, someone had arranged a dress. Maya put it on, looked in the mirror, and immediately recognized that the fabric was wrong. She had spent 3 years handling real couture for wealthy clients, She knew what it felt like, how it fell, what it cost. This dress was a very expensive-looking imitation. "Wear it," Claudette said. "Smile. Look grateful." Maya looked at her. "Let me guess what happens next. I walk out in a dress that isn't right, someone notices, and that becomes the story. The maid who doesn't even know real from fake." Claudette's eyes went flat. "Fine," Maya said. "Let's see who looks worse tonight." She wore the dress, and within 20 minutes of arriving at the gala, someone had photographed it and whispered to someone else, and the photograph had circulated through the room with a caption about someone who clearly wasn't ready for this world. And then someone's designer heel had caught the hem, and the fabric had torn, and laughter had rippled through the nearest cluster of guests. That was when Daniel appeared beside her. "Take this," he said quietly, handing her a shawl. "Cover the tear. Use the side entrance to the terrace, not the main path, and stand up straight." She looked at him. "Why?" "Because you looked shocked, not prepared. If you're who we think you might be, you don't get to look shocked anymore." She took the shawl. "You worked rooms like this," she said. "You know how they operate." "I didn't grow up in them either," he said. "Not really. Not the way they want you to think." It was the first honest thing anyone in that house had said to her. The DNA results came back the next morning. Except they didn't come through the official channel. They came through a news alert. A breaking story. Inside sources claiming the results had leaked. The headline was stark. "No blood relation. Maid has no connection to Whitmore Ashford family." Maya read it on her phone at 6 in the morning before anyone had come to tell her. She sat very still, then she went looking for Daniel. "This isn't the official result," he said when she showed him. His jaw was tight. "I don't know who released this, it's too early. The lab hasn't issued anything." "Someone wanted this out before the real results landed," Maya said. "Why?" "Because the real results say something different," he said. And the way he said it, quietly, carefully, like someone who had already been thinking about this for longer than she had, told her that he believed her. Before he could say anything else, there was a commotion downstairs. Eleanor had seen the news, and Eleanor had collapsed. By the time they reached the hospital, Preston had already arranged for someone to pack Maya's things. The family representative, not Preston himself, because he had learned the value of distance, was waiting in her room when she returned from the hospital. "The family believes it would be safer," he said, "if you found alternative accommodations while things settle." Claudette was there too, she couldn't help herself. "You came here as a maid," she said. "You leave as one." Balance restored. Maya looked at her for a long moment. "You said I was under your protection," she said to Daniel, who had followed her upstairs. "I said until evidence said otherwise. And the evidence is a leaked news report from an anonymous source before the official results." He didn't answer. She picked up her bag. "I'm not crying," she said. "I'm remembering everything, all of it." She looked at Claudette. "I hope you never have to stand where I'm standing. I wouldn't wish it on anyone." She walked out. And the moment she was gone, she called Diane. Diane didn't answer the first time, or the second. On the third call, she picked up. "Mom, I need somewhere to stay tonight." Silence. Then, "Don't come here, Maya." "What?" "You can't fight these people. You don't know what you're dealing with." "You're my mother, I said don't come back." The line went dead. Maya stood on the sidewalk outside the Whitmore Ashford estate with her one bag and the weight of that call pressing down on her chest. She found a motel. She sat on the edge of the bed, and she started searching. Riverside Women's Medical Center, Clarkton, closed 18 years ago. Hospital fire in the final months of operation. Records lost in the blaze. At least 4 infants moved to other facilities during the chaos. She typed, "Riverside Hospital Fire Cause of Investigation." She typed, "Whitmore Ashford Family, Clarkton, 1990s. She typed, "Baby Switch Hospital, Clarkton." And then, very slowly, a shape began to emerge from the fragments. She went to the hospital site. It was a parking lot now, a strip mall on the western edge of downtown Clarkton. Nothing left of the original building except a section of outer wall, preserved by some city heritage ordinance, with the faded outline of what had once been a window. Daniel was already there. She stared at him. "You followed me," she said. "You disappeared from the motel," he said. "I've been keeping an eye on things. Quietly. Surveillance. Concern," he said. "There's a difference. Maya, look at the wall." She looked. The brickwork around the old window was darker than the surrounding sections. Not from age. From heat. "Accelerant marks," Daniel said. The fire investigator's original report, and before it was sealed, noted accelerant traces in the records room specifically, the part of the building that burned hottest, where patient files were stored. "Someone set it on fire to destroy records," Maya said. "That's what I believe." "Yes." "Records about me." He didn't say yes or no. He handed her a photocopy he'd pulled from somewhere. A partial document. One page of what had clearly been a longer file, with most of the text obscured except for a fragment at the bottom, a last name handwritten in a ledger column. Calloway. She felt the blood leave her face. "Calloway is my foster mother's name," she said. "I know. Her name is Diane Calloway." "I know that too. There's a nurse with the same last name who worked at Riverside in the year you were born. A woman named Patricia Calloway. Not a common name." Maya's voice was barely above a whisper. "Are you saying Diane knew?" "I'm saying I think someone paid for your silence, your placement, your distance from this family." He paused. "I could be wrong." "You're not wrong." She knew it the way you know things that have always been true, but that you weren't ready to see. The way Diane had shut every conversation about Maya's origins down hard and fast. The way she had never helped Maya look for her biological family. The way she had answered the phone that morning and told her not to come home. "Don't confront her yet," Daniel said. "Not without more." Maya touched the locket at her throat. "I need proof." "Then let's get it." I want to pause here for just a moment, because what Maya was about to do next took a kind of courage most people never have to find. If you're rooting for her, if this story is hitting somewhere real for you, share it with someone tonight. A like costs nothing, and it helps more people find stories like this one. She went to Diane. Not to confront. Not yet. She told herself she just needed to see. But the moment she walked through the door of the house she had grown up in and saw Diane's face, the way it went carefully, deliberately blank, she knew. "You knew I wasn't your daughter," Maya said. "Not your biological child. You knew." "I raised you," Diane said. "That should mean something." "It means a lot. Don't dodge me. You knew." A long pause. Then, "I knew something was off. There were things that didn't add up about the paperwork. I wasn't told everything." Another pause. "And yes, someone paid me. To not ask questions. To not look. To keep you where you were." The world tilted. "How much?" Maya asked, and she was surprised by how steady her voice was. "It was 20 years ago. I was broke. They said powerful people were involved. I was scared." "You were paid," Maya said. "There's a difference. The nurse, Patricia Calloway. Is she a relative of yours?" Diane's eyes dropped. "She's my cousin," she said quietly. "She worked at that hospital. She was the one who called me, who arranged it. The shape of it, the whole ugly shape of it, coming into focus now, sharp-edged and irreversible." "I need to report a child switching case," Maya said, and she meant it, and Diane knew she meant it. The detective who took her case was a woman named Reyes. Pragmatic, efficient, not given to dramatics. When Maya walked in with what she had, fragments of documents, the locket, the partial ledger page, the name Patricia Calloway, Diane's confession, Reyes had looked at it all carefully and then said, There's a fire investigation from 18 years ago that was sealed by request. I've been curious about that file for a long time. They reopened it together. What they found inside the sealed investigation was evidence of something that had been carefully constructed to look like an accident, but was built like a crime. Accelerant patterns consistent with deliberate origin. A timeline that showed the records room had caught fire before any other part of the building. Witness statements that had been collected and then buried without follow-up. And one more thing. A second ledger. Hospital policy at the time had required a backup birth record kept in a separate location. A private lockbox at an attorney's office rotated every few years. Whoever had engineered the fire hadn't known about the second ledger, or hadn't been able to get to it. It existed, untouched, authenticated, and on the relevant date, it recorded, female infant, Whitmore Ashford family line, silver locket, engraved, transferred at birth. Notation, arranged, and then there was the recording. Reyes found it in the sealed file, a cassette tape that had been logged as evidence and then apparently forgotten. She played it in the investigation room with Maya and Daniel both present. A woman's voice, clipped and purposeful. My daughter goes into that family, one way or another. The baby has been switched, payment goes out tonight. The voice was identified by 3 separate audio analysts. It belonged to Irene Whitmore Ashford, Preston's mother, Eleanor's daughter-in-law, a woman who had been dead for 11 years, but the web of payments she had arranged, to Patricia Calloway, to Diane, to the lab technician who had falsified a DNA report. Those payments had continued, maintained, overseen by someone who was very much alive. Claudette, Daniel said quietly, when Reyes showed them the wire transfer records. She took over managing the payments when Irene died. She's been maintaining the cover-up for over a decade. Maya looked at the papers spread across the table. Olivia's foundation ceremony is in 4 days, she said. Olivia, Claudette and Preston's daughter, the one who had been raised as the family's heir apparent, who had grown up in the life that had been stolen from Maya. She's taking the stage as the family's public face. Yes, Daniel said. Then that's where we end it, Maya said. Publicly, with documentation, not anger, not accusations, evidence. Reyes looked at her. You understand that once this goes public, there's no controlling what happens next. I've never controlled anything, Maya said. That's the point. The night of the foundation anniversary banquet, Maya's name was not on the guest list. She had expected that. Claudette had seen to it. A small, efficient act of erasure, removing her name from the invitation list the way you delete a file you don't want anyone to find. Use my name, Daniel said. This could cost you. You watched them put you on your knees once. I won't watch it a second time. She wore the right dress this time. She held the right posture. She walked through the main entrance of the grand ballroom of the Whitmore Ashford Hotel. The hotel her grandfather had built, the hotel her family owned, the hotel she had once been paid to clean, and she walked in like she owned it. Because she did. The room recognized her before anyone said a word. There was a moment, a collective held breath, and then the murmuring began. She's back. Security moved to intercept. Daniel stepped forward. She came with me. Problem solved. Preston crossed the room. She is not invited to this event. She's standing next to me, Daniel said. Which means she is. Move on, Preston. Eleanor, seated at the family table with a medical escort given her recent hospital stay, looked up across the room. Her face, when she saw Maya, did something that took years off it. Let her in, the old woman said clearly. Let her come to me. Olivia had just taken the stage to begin her remarks about the foundation's new direction when Maya walked to the front of the room. Olivia stopped speaking. The room held. Maya turned to face the audience. She had the authenticated birth ledger in her hand. She had printed copies of the wire transfer records in a folder. She had a digital copy of the recording on a device that Reyes's team had verified was legally obtained. I came here to work at this family's event 3 weeks ago, she said. Her voice was steady and clear. It carried. I ended up on my knees on this family's floor. I was told that was where I belonged. She paused. I want to show you where I actually belong. What followed was not dramatic in the way movies make things dramatic. It was methodical. She presented each piece of evidence. She explained it clearly. She answered questions from the audience, family members, board members, journalists who had somehow gotten into the room. Claudette tried to intervene twice. The second time, Daniel stepped in front of her. Preston called it fraud. Reyes's team, waiting in the lobby, stepped forward. Irene's voice played through the speakers. The room went absolutely silent. And then Eleanor Whitmore Ashford stood up from her chair. Her aide tried to stop her and she waved him off. And she crossed the room. She took Maya's face in her hands. "This is my granddaughter," she said, "in blood and in truth. I have looked for you for 20 years. Come home." If you've made it this far in the story, you already know this isn't really about money or mansions. Leave a comment and tell me, what does it mean to you to finally be seen? I read every single one. The criminal case moved quickly. Claudette and her network, including the lab technician who had produced the false DNA report, and an estate manager named Greer, who had physically moved records after the fire and suppressed news coverage, were each charged with fraud, conspiracy, and related offenses. Diane cooperated with investigators and received a reduced outcome in exchange for her complete testimony. Patricia Calloway, who had retired to Arizona and thought the past was safely behind her, received a visit from federal investigators that suggested otherwise. Preston did not face criminal charges. What he faced instead was perhaps worse: the full knowledge, confirmed and documented and publicly visible, of what his mother had done, what his wife had maintained, what his family had built. He resigned from every board he sat on within a month and stopped appearing in public. The foundation itself went into receivership pending a financial review. And then Eleanor made an offer. "Come home," she said again. This time in private, in her sitting room, with just the two of them. "Take your name, take your place. The foundation, your share of the hotel group. It's yours. It has always been yours." Maya sat with that for a long time. "I'm not coming back for the money," she said finally. "I know. And I'm not coming back to be a symbol, someone to put in front of cameras to show the family did the right thing eventually. I know that too. I'm coming back," Maya said slowly, "because I want to actually change something, not just take what I was owed. I want to make sure that no one who works in this hotel, or any property this family owns, ever has to get on their knees to prove their worth. Not for a paycheck, not to protect a guest, not ever." Eleanor looked at her for a long moment. "That's my granddaughter," she said softly. "That is exactly my granddaughter." The signature ceremony was held in the grand ballroom, the same ballroom where weeks earlier, Maya had been escorted toward the door with her bags packed, the same ballroom where she had once set tables and poured water and moved through the edges of other people's celebrations. She stood at the center of it now. A board member who had always been careful to look through her rather than at her cleared his throat when she sat at the head of the table. "Miss Calloway, Miss—" "Say it plainly," Maya said. "You liked me better on my knees." He flushed. "I was following standard procedure." "Then the standard was rotten," she said. "Let's talk about changing it." She signed. And after the ceremony, when the room was still full and the cameras were still running, she stepped up to the microphone one more time. "No employee of this hotel, or any property associated with this foundation, will ever be required to kneel, to beg, to disappear, or to make themselves small to protect a guest. That is not service. That is not dignity. That ends today." The applause started somewhere in the back and moved forward like a wave. Daniel found her afterward on the terrace where she had slipped away to breathe. "You look like you own the room," he said. "I'm not borrowing it anymore," she said. A pause. The city glittered below them. I want to start again, he said. Properly, without the suspicion, without the power imbalance, without all of it. She looked at him. Ask me again, she said, when you can say it without it sounding like a business proposal. He almost smiled. Deal? She turned back to the view. The city she had grown up in, cleaned in, survived in. The city that had held her secret for 20 years and was just now beginning to give it back. Her locket caught the light. Her life. Her name. Her place. She had always belonged here. She had just needed the truth to catch up. This is what happens when someone refuses to stay small. Not because they have money, not because they have connections or credentials or the right last name, but because they understand something that power tends to forget. Dignity is not given. It is not earned by birth or circumstance. It simply is. And when you try to take it from someone who knows that, you will fail. Every single time. Maya didn't win because the system worked. She won because she refused to let the system be the last word. If you know someone who is fighting a battle like hers, invisible, exhausting, with no guarantee of outcome, share this story with them tonight. Let them know they're not alone. If this story moved you, if you felt every moment of it, please give it a like and subscribe to Untold Maid Confessions. We share these kinds of stories every single week. Stories about the people who show up when everyone else looks away. Stories that remind us what courage actually looks like. Drop a comment and tell me which part of Maya's story hit you hardest. I'll be reading every single one. This has been Untold Maid Confessions. Thank you for being here.